So gangs, the word gang usually doesn't have like a one definition that people refer to or use, but the one that I have is a friendship of adolescents who share common interests with a more or less clearly defined territory in which most of the members live. They are committed to defending one another, the territory, and the gang name in the status of seeking fights that occur in schools and on the streets. So basically, a gang is just a group of people, typically males, who just kind of come together as like a sort of club and usually just commit crimes or party together or do drugs, just anything along those lines. So there are roughly 30,000 gangs in the United States today and 850,000 gang members. Usually the larger the city, the higher chance of them having more gangs. So like in Los Angeles and Chicago is another big one. Those are really large cities, and they're more likely to have lots of gangs. So the main three types of gangs that were from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s were the hedonistic, the instrumentally oriented, and the predatory. So hedonistic is very informal. They were really focused on just having fun, usually like to do drugs and party, and not really focused on committing crimes or harming others. So they really just like to kind of do their own thing and hang out with just among themselves and not really cause any harm to anyone else. So these were very harmless gangs usually. And then the instrumentally oriented were definitely more organized, and they were really focused on making profit. So just anything they could do to make money. So they kind of would usually commit property crimes. And then the predatory are focused on committing very violent crimes. So they were the worst out of all three. They were very dangerous people. So currently there are three types of gangs: criminal, conflict, and retreatist. Criminal usually would start and develop in neighborhoods. Their traditions consisted of organized crimes, which was accepted by the residents. So everyone kind of in that neighborhood was kind of typically in the gang and kind of all worked together and committed pretty harsh crimes. Conflict struggled with achieving goals having to do with legitimate and illegitimate means, so they turned to violence in order to gain power. So they were kind of struggling. So in order to feel like they had power, they would commit violent crimes as well. And then retreatist, these gangs relied on drugs and alcohol kind of as an escape, so they weren't really into committing any crimes, just kind of partying and using drugs. So for female gangs, it's typically uncommon that there are all female gangs. Usually it's mixed, or there's just not that many of them. So the three types are the mixed gender gangs. So those are about half male, half females. There's usually just, not a lot of girls involved in gangs, especially when it comes to committing harsh crimes. The female gangs affiliated with male gangs are usually just gangs that have low status, but kind of are friends with the male gang members. And then the independent female gangs are all girls in that gang, but they don't commit any harsh crimes or do anything violent to harm anyone else. So there are 5 levels of membership within the gangs. The first one being leadership. So usually there's one leader, and they're the most powerful member of the group, and they're kind of responsible and in charge of what crimes the gang is going to commit and to what extent they will go. The hardcore members are typically the older members that have been in the gang for a while and are pretty dedicated. They are more likely to risk everything to participate in these crimes. The associate are the members of the gang that are fully committed and dedicated everything to the gang, and they always try to kind of get recognition for their dedication and commitment. So they're kind of just like ones who really want to be well known for being in this gang and putting in a lot of hard work. The fringe are the types of members that are not fully dedicated. They still have an outside life where they participate in other things not gang related. And then the wannabes aren't actual official members. They're not really even close to it. They're usually children that kind of look up to gangs or know people in gangs that they hope to kind of be like those people when they're older. And here's just a level of membership diagram. It's just called the membership diagram, so you can kind of see the different levels within all of the gangs kind of just spread out on a diagram. And then for leadership, almost all gangs have leaders. Big gangs in big cities that have been around for a long time usually have an older male as their leader and usually stays consistent. Like in big cities like Chicago and Los Angeles, the gangs usually will have one leader and it'll stay. But in smaller, not as dedicated gangs, I guess, they have a leader that kind of come and goes or just kind of switches positions every once in a while, so no one really prominent or set to be one main leader. So it just kind of depends on what the gang decides and what they feel is right.